guys, and welcome back to my Patreon tutorials. So for today's tutorial I thought I'd go through how to draw horses' manes. Now I really love drawing long flowy horse manes and I think it's a really fun thing to do. So I've started out, I've drawn some really faint horse outlines and I'll go through one by one just showing you different ways of bringing horse manes to life. So let's get stuck in. So I'm just going to start off with this guy, going to be super simple. I'll draw kind of the shapes and everything in red and then go in over the top with this black pencil afterwards, just so you can see. So the red goes in lighter and then we can build up over the top of it nicely. So this will be quite a simple horse mane, one that's just hanging loosely. It'll be kind of medium length and we'll just kind of go with the flow. So one thing to bear in mind when you're drawing horses' manes is to take into account whether there's like a breeze perhaps, if you want to make your drawing more dynamic. But if this one's going to be quite sort of static, so I don't have to go too much into going like, you know, where would the horse flow if it's horse's hair flow if it's billowing in the wind. But if it's just hanging loosely, really good shapes to remember are kind of gentle C shapes and gentle S shapes, and I guarantee you most manes, long hair, can be made up of these two shapes. It's just a really great thing to bear in mind. So I'm going to build up with a lot of these kind of loose C shapes, loose S shapes. So I'll start off with the forelock, because the mane tends to be thicker, or tends to be quite thick. I tend to make sure that it's not resting directly on the forehead but slightly above it, and that's just to take into account the kind of the thickness of the hair. I've drawn this light loose S shape, C shape in here, and obviously bearing in mind gravity and how the hair will flow, just kind of bringing the lines down and just letting the line kind of drop where the gravity would be pulling it. So I'm just going to fill in this gap with kind of an S shape here. And then you have a basic place where the forelock can go. I like to draw extra strands. I always tend to start with the basic blocks, so we'll do that first and then we'll build up over the top in a second. So again, taking into account the thickness of the hair, I'm just going to draw kind of a wavy line that goes down the back of the neck, and that's just to give the impression of how thick the hair is. And I tend to go in with my S shapes here. And I always draw chunks. So at the minute it doesn't look very realistic or natural, but we'll go back over the top in a minute to kind of refine it. So kind of keeping that shape recurring down the neck, just pulling in different chunks of different sizes, using the C shape and the S shape that I put down here. So this mane's quite, it's not too long, but it's not super short either, so it gives you a chance to play with the shape a bit. So as you can see, I'm connecting these lines with sort of trenches in that wiggly line I drew. So this dip here, so it goes up, down, dip. I'll probably extend that dip to a chunk of hair here. Now where it gets to the shoulder, I like to just make it a little bit shorter, bearing in mind that it's probably going to be sticking up a little bit. You can go to your practice references here for this and just get an idea of how, you know, where the hair actually lies on a horse. So once I've got the basic shapes in, because this hair isn't really doing anything, it's going to be quite easy to fill those blocks in. So I'll go back to the forelock and I'm just going to fill in those areas from a point to point with those S shapes. And it kind of fills in the gap. and adds a bit of flow to the image. So I'm connecting the top of the block down to where the point of the hair is. And then filling that up, you can see there's a slight, this is more of a sense of flow now. And just keep doing it all the way along the edge. Filling that space up. I'm doing lots of wavy lines. So this is just how I like to draw horse manes. Obviously they're quite abstract, they're not exactly realistic, but I think they look quite nice. I'm just taking into account, I'm following where the pencil kind of goes, bearing in mind that I'm kind of connecting the top with the bottom, filling in those spaces. So that's how you kind of start to fill in the boxes, the blocks or the shapes, or whatever you put down, whether they're like ovals or just nice C shapes, S shapes. They're quite nice to fill in. You just allow yourself to flow and do it in one line. Just gently curve S shape, C shape. Just go with the flow. It's a really nice thing to do. It's quite therapeutic. So I'm going to do, now I've got this kind of basic structure in, it's up to you whether you carry on. I'm just going to do this for sort of teaching purposes and show you ways of like shading and kind of bringing things to life a little bit by using a darker pencil over the top. So again, I'm just going to block in those lines that I've drawn already. Now what I like to do is to add a bit of life to it, is I vary the line weight. So I'm doing it heavy in places, lighter in others. As you can see, a bit darker on the top, lighter in the middle. I'm not completely drawing every single line. I think that's a useful thing to do, is not draw every single line when you're drawing a horse's mane. You don't want to put every single hair in because that can be quite distracting. I like to keep it simple. And I also like to throw in loose strands of hair. Just kind of go off the beaten track and lightly draw in. I like to think this horse hasn't been brushed for a while, or it's quite wild. So its hair is all flowy. So one thing you can do to shade is start off with it quite dark at the top and then lightly fade it into the middle, and then start at the other end, dark at the other end, and lightly shade it up to the middle. And then you've got kind of a highlight band that goes across the middle. And obviously you've got other layers of hair here, so you can do the same. For this bit here, for example, I can just bring in a little bit of darkness and sketch in some extra shadow. Very simple way of shading. So to carry on, again I'm just going to draw the outline in, but I'm letting the pencil kind of decide where the actual lines go. So I think that will look nice. It's like a loose strand of hair that's come in and it's just tucked in here. So one thing to do is you can press heavy at one end, lightly press in the middle, and then press heavy again. And you kind of get a lovely fading or varying of line weight. And that's a really simple way of just adding a bit of shading without really doing very much. So you can, I'll go back up here. So press heavy here, lightly press in the middle, press down. So again, I'm not drawing every single line of hair with the dark pencil. Just giving sort of an impression of where the fur or the hair lies. Just sketching in these lines here. So what the red pencil was there for is to kind of give an idea of where the flow of the line, the hair goes. But it doesn't mean that I have to draw every single line that's gone in there. Again, I'm just going to throw some shading in. Lightly up here. Darker at the top and fading into a lighter colour here. And dark down the bottom. Paying attention to where the hair kind of lies. Throwing in perhaps a bit of shadow here. This is completely optional, of course. You don't have to shade it if you don't want to. I just think it looks nice. Cool. And then you just carry on. So I will do that. Let you get on with yours. And I'll see you back here in a second. So there you have it. Very simple, lightly kind of resting mane. Nothing too wild or kind of billowy. It's just nice and relaxed mane, if a mane can be relaxed. So the horse is pretty, he's just standing there, just chilling, and his mane reflects that. Cool, so next I'll go and show you how to be a bit more dynamic with your mane drawing. Right then, for this one, we're going to pretend that he's, you know, just been spooked by something. His head's been thrown back, the wind has caught his mane, and it's kind of flowing off into the air like this way. I really like drawing long billowing manes. I think it's a really nice thing to do, so that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So again, I'm going to kind of start off with the chunks and the shapes that I do normally. So bearing in mind that the hair has kind of been blown up into the air, the shapes will naturally go upwards. So I've just drawn this C shape here. I'm going to draw another C shape here. Maybe even draw it out into an S shape. So, just taking into account those curving C shapes, how they've kind of gone up and they've been blown back, say, by the wind. Now, just going to draw chunks away from the neck here. Again, taking into account my C's and my S shapes. Yeah, this one's going to curve back again. I'm going to bring that one in. I'm going to blend that one in to this line here. So the hair is so long that it's going to kind of go up, but it's also going to be tangled in with this chunk of mane here. So just going to go along, kind of throwing in these extra shapes. This one's going to go up against itself like this. So I've still got this S shape, but it's almost opposite to this one. So that one's curved away that way, this one's curved away that way. And I'm going to allow that bit to go up like this, just following the flow of the line. I'm going to have a chunk come down like this. So it's narrowed here, and then it's kind of gone back out again. I'm just going to bring a bit that's come under here. Like this. So I'm just allowing the lines to kind of take themselves, but just bearing in mind that I'm always drawing C's or S shapes. So I'm going to have that one come into here. Almost like this bit of hair is knotted in with this bit. I'm just going to bring that down like this. Like for example, you don't have to start these S shapes from the neck itself. I've just started one here because I'm going to imply how much flow of hair has come up along this line. So you can always just play with it. That's the wonderful thing, is that there aren't really any rules. You can just make it go exactly where you want it to go. You can make it more or less flowy. But I like to include those C's and those S shapes to really kind of get a sense of the flow. So a little trick. Instead of drawing a harsh line to show where the neck ends and the hair begins, what I like to do is just draw these little kind of speech mark lines. And what they do is that they imply that there's a line there, but it's a soft edge. See? So you can see that there's a line where the neck ends and the hair begins, but there's no sharp line. So what I'm going to do is I'll go in with my red pencil again and start to kind of define shapes that I like and add a bit of flow. So I'm going to keep this mane a little bit more simple. I'm not going to draw as many lines as I did before, because I think it's nice to imply lines rather than draw every single one. So you can see I've connected these lines, or this line, up to the top here. And I'm going to leave that bit kind of almost blank. And then this part here is going to come back into that line here. So it becomes quite an intuitive process. There's no rules, there's no strictness to it. You just kind of listen. I don't know if that sounds completely abstract and strange, but you just let the lines flow. It's probably quite good for, practicing breathing exercises or something, if you want to be nice and therapeutic with your art. But you can kind of let everything just flow. Just enjoy the process. What I'm going to do here, so I'm going to draw it as if it's twisted ever so slightly. So what I will do, so this chunk of hair has twisted in the breeze. I'm just going to connect those two lines together to show a change in direction. Quite a simple way, showing a bit of hair is just twisted up and combined itself with the previous chunks. Cool. So now I've got the light lines down, I'm going to go in with my black pencil again and refine everything. Just going to, again with the thicker lines, light lines, thicker lines, and give a sense of shade and light without doing anything too drastic. Very simple way of implying hair or fur. a shadow in, but not much is needed. Almost drawing these extra shapes not attached to the actual main bit of the hair here. And the reason for that is that hair is often so thin you can't actually see it. So what this does, for example, we'll do one in a second, we'll do one here. So it implies that there is hair here, but you just can't see it because it's so faint. It just adds a bit of extra dynamicness. I don't know if that's the word. Just makes it more dynamic. And it implies hair rather than having to draw every single strand. So there you have it. Something slightly more dynamic. You've got, you know, the red lines and flowiness, but you haven't drawn every single strand of hair. Yet you can tell what it is, and that's why I really like this kind of style. There. On to the next one. So for this one, I decided to draw the mane from behind. So most horses have kind of a parting that goes down the back. So I've drawn here this line. That is the back of the neck. This is just for kind of illustration purposes. Shoulder comes down here and then the back goes down like this. So what I like to do is draw along that line. Again, I'm going to go for something flowy. Perhaps the wind has just caught his hair like this. So you've got those C shapes, those S shapes. They're all connecting up to this to this line here. You see, I'm kind of going over that line slightly because I want to show a sense of depth and pillowiness. Pillowy. Not even sure that's the word either, but there we are. And then the forelock we can just do behind the ears. We're going into the wind and then being blown away. So, got the back of the head. So I'm just drawing. We've got the nape of the neck here. I'm making sure to curve around like that. Curve around to imply thickness and volume. So if I go in here again, I'm just going to start playing with direction and shapes. Maybe this bit is twisted ever so slightly in the wind. So a good way to do the sort of twistiness. So you curve along with the hair and you go just almost against the flow. And you just do it again. And that suggests that the hair is twisted. So, pat it in with the black. Again, I'm not going to draw every single strand because, like I said, it's really good for hair because you can't see every strand of hair, just to imply it. You can break it in with a bit of shading, paying attention to where the light might be hitting. So for this horse's face, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have the mane on this side of the neck. I'm going to have it on the other side. So like I did with the first horse, I'm just going to add a squiggle for where the mane lies. And I'm going to bring in this forelock here, paying attention to gravity. Perhaps there's a gentle breeze as well. I'm going to draw in those shapes. Now, what you like to do is draw those little speech mark lines in again. We might have, for example, I'm just going to play with it, I'm going to bring in a lock of hair that's got stuck on this side of his neck. Drawing those curvy lines. Very simple, very straightforward to bring in lines, a bit of mane to the other side. I'll just pull it up over the top, down with some curvy lines, and I'll pad in a few extra curves here. Now what I'm going to do, because I like to think, because his forelock is really long, I imagine the rest of his mane is going to be really long as well. So, they can't see most of it. I'm going to have this chunk that comes down. This is where his shoulder is. Again, paying attention to the S shapes and the C shapes. Bring in a chunk of hair like this. I'm going to bring that up here. I'm going to make it blend in with the forelock. So now what I'm going to do is again do the shapes, paying attention to the fact that the top of the mane, or this end of the mane, I won't be able to see because it's hidden behind his face. It'd be good to throw in one of these extra triangle shapes here, like that. And again, just C shape, adding a bit of flow, just going with the box itself or the shape that I've already put down. I'm kind of filling it in. So I did that would be good, and then I might add a bit of twisted mane here. Like that. This is where the shoulder would be. You probably won't be able to see the rest of it, but so this is how you hide it behind the rest of the horse's face. I might just sketch him in so you can see him better. So his eye would be back here. His ears. So that's where the shoulder is. So I'm just going to do that shape again. I'm not drawing every single line, just implying that shape. Like so. Some heavy lines, some soft lines, implying that shape. The most important thing is to enjoy the process, not get too caught up in what's right, what's wrong. Just let the mane flow. The more you flow with it, and the more you allow yourself to flow with it, the more elegant it will feel, the less constricted it will feel, and then the more relaxed you will be whilst you're having a go as well. Just have that in your mind as you go, just flow, flow. And the more you think it, the more it will become. Good. And then on to our last one. For this one I thought I'd go really long, just because why not? Why not? So I've got the back of the neck here. Again, draw that line in for where the top of the mane will be. So what I'm going to do is draw a really long mane, but from the other side, so actually much like this guy, so it's behind the neck. So forelock comes out and then down. Nice and elegant lines. I don't think many horses have manes that are like this. But that's what drawing's all about. That's just making it exactly how you want it to be. What I've done here is I've implied the floor. So this is where the ground is. I'm going to use that to kind of guide where the mane goes. Because if you can imagine, the hair would probably drag quite a bit. So you can imply the dragging by having that elongated C shape. can have the rest of it billow down, but get caught in this bit and drag out. Billow down, caught in that bit and drag it out like that. Obviously this horse would have legs, but I'm just going to stick with the mane so you can see. So these shapes are all very long and flowy, and again drag, pull it down and drag, pull it down and drag. So you can see it just kind of looks like the hair is being pulled this way, as if it's running along the floor. So this one's really nice, really elegant. Then I'm just going to pop in clumps top with those speech mark lines that kind of show that there's a line that goes along the back of the neck. Again, all down, light and heavy. Pressing heavy and then going back up, pressing lightly. That just gives a sense of flow. I really encourage doing these in long sweeping lines because that implies length of hair, it implies, you know, flow. I think sketchy lines can work, but I think when you're drawing hair, it's really nice. You get a really nice effect if you just do long, confident lines. Pull it down. So after all, it can be quite nerve-wracking to do long lines like this. But ask yourself, what's the worst that's going to happen? Your line might not be quite where you meant it to go. Does it mean it's wrong? Not really. You can just try again. His hair looks lovely and long and graceful. The horse was a princess. This would be one. I'll pop in some shade. I might just draw a line of shadow here. And some shade that comes down. And heavy at one end. Apply some light coming through here. Quite like that being one long strand that's stuck together. I'll shade that instead. So just play with it. Do long, sweeping, confident lines. You know, if you're worried about, say, ruining a horse that you've already drawn, don't think about it like that. Don't think about it as a case of ruining something, because you can always try again. And when you're doing something for the first time, you might be bad at it, and that's okay, because after all, how can we get better if we don't make mistakes? Listen to Bob Ross. They're not mistakes, they're happy little accidents. So yeah, the line might not go where you want it to go, but change the drawing to fit it, you know, just play with it. So, there you have it. A page of horse manes. There's lots of different ways of doing it. This is just my style, and obviously you may find ways that suit you better. But I really like doing long, elegant, flowing manes and having long sweeping brush strokes or pencil strokes, whatever medium I'm using. and allowing the mane to kind of decide itself where it's going. I don't erase anything. I just let the shapes appear as I'm drawing, and I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I can't wait to see you again, and please, if there's any ideas that you have for tutorials that you'd really like to see, don't be afraid to send me a message or leave a comment on Patreon, anything at all. Just let me know if you have ideas or there are things that you want to learn, because I'm always seeking new ideas for tutorials. So it's really good to have you here, and I can't wait to see you again for the next one. Bye guys!